Originally from California, Billy Hargrove was born in 1967 in California. The city in California that Billy grew up in is never mentioned, but it's most likely somewhere in Southern California, based on Billy's penchant for surfing in California.
Yeah, totally tubular. What, did I say that right? Or is it like tubular?
The name of Billy's birth mother remains unknown, but what is known is that Billy would have been very close to her as a small child. Billy's happiest memory is from when he was about 7 or 8 years old. He was surfing while his mother cheered him on. Billy brags about surfing a wave that was 7 feet tall. His mom says she saw it and he almost gave her a heart attack. Billy asks if he can keep surfing for 10 more minutes, and his mom reluctantly agrees, saying any longer than that and Dad's gonna be mad. It would be that very fury from Billy's dad, Neil Hargrove, that shaped him into who he would become. To learn more about Billy and what makes him one of Hawkins' scariest antagonists, stick around to the end of this video. Welcome to Horror History. In this episode, I'll be covering the childhood, life, and end of Hawkins' most intimidating high school student, Billy Hargrove. I've mentioned in other videos on Stranger Things that Stephen King is a huge influence for the show, from the town of Hawkins itself to specific characters. Billy is far from an exception. The Duffer Brothers, the creators of Stranger Things, cited King directly when coming up with Billy, stating, "Stephen King always has really great human villains. The evil in the real world is often as bad or worse as the supernatural evil, so we wanted to include a character like that." So it comes as no surprise that Billy shares a lot of similarities with some of King's ugliest child antagonists. He even shares the same name as Billy Nolan from Carrie. But Billy Hargrove possibly has the most in common with Henry Bowers from It. From the more than tough fathers to their views on those that are different than them and treatment of those they see as weaker than them, there are a lot of parallels you can draw. To fully understand Billy and what makes him so scary, I'm going to take it back to his upbringing. Billy's dad, Neil, was a little bit on the tough side, to say the least. Billy played baseball as a kid on a team called the Tigers. His dad was extremely critical of his performance, often yelling at him if he didn't perform up to expectations. Because of this, Billy grew up afraid of his dad, as did his mother.
Where were you last night? Where were you?
I told you I was with Wendy!
Stop lying to me!
I'm not lying to you!
Saw him again, didn't you? Didn't you?
Wait for me! You're lying!
Neil Hargrove went on to remarry, giving Billy a new stepmom and stepsister named Maxine. Billy is full of anger and resentment towards his new family. It was never his fault that his parents got divorced, and now he's being asked to accept this new family with open arms. Maxine often finds herself on the receiving end of Billy's teenage angst. In October of 1984, when Billy was 17 years old, Neil moves the family to Hawkins, Indiana. Hawkins has the feeling of a Stephen King town in that it's frightening for the kids that live there because they not only have to deal with the Upside Down, Demogorgons, and the Mind Flayer, but there are also a multitude of human monsters to look out for. On October 28, 1984, Billy's parents force him to drive Max to school, and their resentment for each other is clear, based on how Max slams the car door and storms off on the first day of their respective new schools. Billy drives a blue Camaro, not unlike the blue muscle car seen in the Muschietti adaptation of It, driven around by the Bowers gang. He even has the look of several Stephen King bully characters. The jeans, boots, even the style of shirt is similar to Ace Merrill from Stand By Me. This is a very specific choice in that Billy both demonstrates a popular look and trend of the early 80s, but could also pass as an Ace Merrill type from the 60s. The look is what draws the attention of everyone.
Who is that? I have no idea. Would you check out that ass? Just look at it go.
The women of Hawkins may be awestruck by Billy, and he repeatedly puts himself on display for this type of attention. But in another parallel to Ace Merrill, Billy has no respect for women, and he makes that abundantly clear.
You smell that, Max? That's actually shit. Cow shit.
I don't see any cows.
Clearly you haven't met the high school girls.
Yikes. Another commonality he shares with Ace can be seen in one of the most tense scenes in the film, which is not featured in the novella that inspired it, but Ace plays chicken with an oncoming log truck to win a race. He shows absolute determination and no fear or concern at the possibility of killing everyone in the car, despite their pleas for him to stop. Stranger Things has a moment that looks almost identical. On Halloween, Billy torments Max by threatening to run Will, Lucas, and Dustin off the road, never letting up with the same unrelenting determination as Ace.
That was a close one, huh?
But Max, Will, Dustin, and Lucas are not the only ones to end up in Billy's crosshairs. Billy likes attention and draws a lot of it himself. This is evident in the way he dresses, the way he revs his engine upon pulling up to the school, and I could go on. So when Billy hears that Steve Harrington is the most popular guy at Hawkins High School, he immediately perceives Steve as someone that he needs to dominate. And what better place for a legendary rivalry to begin than that year's Halloween party? Billy's quest to overtake Steve's reputation begins at the big Halloween party, where Billy infiltrates Steve's friend group by beating Steve's record at keg stands, impressing Steve's friends.
We got ourselves a new keg king, Harrington.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, eat it, Harrington.
Apparently in Hawkins, all you have to do to get a group of friends to drop one is be really good at chugging beer upside down. But Billy's determination to dominate Steve Harrington doesn't stop there. The next day, the two have gym class together, where Billy repeatedly makes verbal jabs at him and even aggressively knocks him down, telling him to plant his feet better next time. Man, they're playing like it's the 90s out there. Oh, yeah, it's still the 80s in this show. It comes as no surprise that when, just a few days later, Billy overhears that Nancy, Steve's girlfriend, was seen ditching school with another guy, Billy takes this as another opportunity to emasculate Steve.
Don't take it too hard, man. Pretty boy like you's got nothing to worry about. Plenty of bitches in the sea. I'll be sure to leave you some.
I can't help but be reminded again of Ace from Stand By Me.
So, what's with you and this Connie Palermo chick?
I've been seeing her for over a month now, and all she let me do is feel her tits.
She's a Catholic, man. They're all like that. If you want to get laid, you gotta get yourself a Protestant.
But it's also something Billy probably picked up from his own dad. Neil at one point tells Billy to cancel a date with whatever harlot he's seeing tonight. He used a different word. Sadly, misogyny is not the only negative trait that Billy takes on that he likely learned from Neil Hargrove. Billy rarely pays attention to anything his stepsister Max does, but on November 2nd, 1984, when Billy notices Max having a heated discussion with Lucas Sinclair, he suddenly takes an interest in Max's social life and makes it clear that he disapproves of her spending time with Lucas. In fact, of everyone that Billy interacts with in Hawkins, it seems like he harbors the most disdain towards Lucas without really knowing anything about it. The scene kind of made me wonder if it was a race thing.
Hey! This is serious shit, okay? I'm older than you, and something you learn is that there are certain type of people in this world that you stay away from. And that kid, Max, that kid is one of them.
The actor, Dacre Montgomery, has stated that Billy's real reason for not liking Lucas has more to do with Lucas seeming to have a crush on Max. He loves his sister Max, and if it were any other kid bothering her, he would have reacted the same way. It's kind of a strange answer, because Billy hasn't been shown to care about his stepsister up to this point, and he doesn't share the same attitude for Dustin, who also shows interest in Max. But if Billy's feelings towards Lucas are partially race-related, it would be another parallel to the way that Henry Bowers treats and thinks of Mike Hanlon in It. In the case of Henry Bowers, the racism is directly learned from his dad, and even if Billy isn't racist, he definitely picked up some prejudiced views from his own father. Unfortunately for Max, she has a second interaction like this with Billy the very next day. In addition to being forced to take Max to and from school, it's also Billy's responsibility to pick her up from the arcade. Max tries to keep Billy from being able to see that she'd been talking to Lucas, but Billy still catches them.
The hell I tell you?
It's a small town, okay? We weren't hanging out.
Well, you know what happens when you lie.
Even this warning about lying comes from the influence of Neil Hargrove. When Billy was growing up, Neil would accuse Billy's mother of lying, and there were consequences when he thought that she was. Apparently in this case, the consequence for Max is a broken skateboard. Billy's warning does not fall on deaf ears with Max, however, she doesn't communicate this to Lucas, and who can really blame her? I mean, what would that conversation look like? It's easier for her just not to mention it. As I mentioned, one of Billy's defining traits is his love for attention. He's very focused on his appearance, so he's often working out, yet smoking as he does so, which kind of defeats the purpose. I bet he would get along with Kat from Final Destination 2. But despite taking smoke directly into his lungs while working out, his work is apparently so profuse that he refuses to be interrupted when the doorbell rings. Max abruptly shuts the door, so Billy can tell something is up, sending him to drop his workout and investigate. But only after cracking open a beer? It feels like everything this guy does is counterproductive to his workout. I mean, I would go on further about this, but I've actually seen people drinking sugar-filled energy drinks at the gym. Maybe these people are just so powerful that they have to set themselves back a little bit to give the rest of us a chance. Or maybe they're just
The hell are you talking to?
Mormons?
Mormons?
Talkative ones.
After this, he leaves her to it, but when Billy's dad and stepmom come home later that night, they notice that Max is missing, and Neil blames Billy for not watching her.
So that's why you've been staring at yourself in the mirror like some instead of watching your sister.
You had one job, Billy. I think Neil also has a lot in common with Webby Gartone from It. Webby was part of the gang responsible for the death of a gay man named Adrian Mellon. I analyzed the whole situation in Adrian's own episode of Horror History. Neil seems to have the same heterosexist outlook, which may have rubbed off on his son, just one of the many weird messed up issues that Billy seems to have. And another would soon make itself known. Billy's dad sends him to find his missing stepsister, and while going from door to door, he makes a stop at the Wheeler house to see if Max is there, allowing him to have this statutory exchange with Mike and Nancy's mom, Karen Wheeler.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
I didn't realize Nancy had a sister.
I'm Nancy's mother.
No.
Yes.
Mrs. Wheeler.
I'm sorry, and you are?
Billy Hargrove.
And you must be here for Nancy.
Nancy? No, not my type.
Well, honestly, he kind of dodged a bullet there. After Billy gets the information he needs from Mrs. Wheeler, he moves on to the Byers house. As usual, Billy wants all eyes on him as he revs his engine. This has the desired effect, and Max starts to panic, saying that Billy will kill her and probably everyone else if he realizes that she's there. It's up to Steve Harrington to divert Billy away from the house, so he goes outside to confront him. Once again, Billy does his best to assert his dominance over his new rival.
This whole situation, Harrington, I don't know. It's giving me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, why is that?
My 13-year-old sister goes missing all day, and then I find her with you in a stranger's house, and you lie to me about it.
Kind of a bold statement for a teenager who just told a much older woman that a girl his own age is not his type. But Billy does manage to once again assert dominance over Steve by hitting him so hard that he's knocked to the ground, citing again that Steve should have planted his feet. Considering that Billy seems threatened by Steve, you'd think that Steve would be the main target of his anger. But Billy's real anger comes out at Lucas, and it's truly terrifying.
Well. Lucas Sinclair, what a surprise. I thought I told you to stay away from him, Max.
Billy, go away.
You disobeyed me. And you know what happens when you disobey me.
Billy.
I break things.
But luckily for Lucas, Steve Harrington isn't done. Just when it seems like Lucas might be in real trouble, Steve unexpectedly grabs Billy, managing to at least redirect Billy's rage. As Steve lies helpless on the ground after being pummeled by Billy, Max notices a syringe left over from the Hawkins lab and injects the contents into his neck. And honestly, it's not completely clear that Max even knew what was in the syringe. I mean, aside from the possibility that it's something completely dangerous, that she could have been responsible for whatever happened to him, what if it had been some kind of steroid that would have just made him stronger and more angry? Or what if it caused him to slowly turn into Grimace from the McDonald's commercials? It could have been really, really bad, but luckily it's just a tranquilizer. So Billy woke up a few hours later in the locker room of the Hawkins pool and heard, "I want to play a game." No, I'm kidding. As the sedative takes effect, instead of getting scared or even angry, he starts laughing, which is much more creepy. As he collapses on the floor, she delivers more than a stern warning for Billy to leave her and her friends alone. He doesn't object as his younger stepsister proceeds to steal his car and pretty much leaves Lucas alone after that and lays low throughout the next year at Hawkins High. But Billy, always vying to be in the public eye, doesn't stay out of it for long. In the summer of 1985, he gets a job as a lifeguard at the local pool. Lol. Karen Wheeler is no longer the only adult woman in Hawkins to take an interest in Billy.
Ladies, she's coming down.
However, Karen may be the only woman whose interest seems to be mutual. She purposely swims when she knows that he's watching, and he takes the bait, inviting her to meet him at a hotel that night for swimming lessons. Which makes me wonder, I mean, they're already at a pool, why don't they just do the swimming lessons right here? Oh, he's talking about As Billy drives to the hotel, his car hits something in the road. Now, unfortunately, it wasn't Nancy or Lucas's little sister. In fact, it doesn't seem to be anything. As he gets out, he's pulled by another powerful creature from the Upside Down, the Mind Flayer, into the Brimborn Steelworks warehouse where it's able to occupy Billy, similar to what it did to Will Byers the previous year. Unlike Will, though, Billy has a direct conversation with the Mind Flayer, which communicates with Billy by giving him visions of talking to himself.
I said, what do you want?
To build. I want you to build.
To build what?
What you see.
I don't understand.
In an interview with the New York Times, Dacre Montgomery gave a little bit of additional context. context. For Flayed Billy, I did a lot of research on bipolar disorder and split personalities, and how one personality controls the other personalities. Yes, I'm aware that bipolar and dissociative identity disorder are not the same thing, but feel free to leave 100 comments telling me about it anyways. This direct conversation with himself could be seen as a symbol for a struggle with multiple mental health issues, but in this video, I'll just focus on the one that seems to be most persistent in Stranger Things Season 3, bipolar disorder. He experiences all of the common traits of someone being inhabited by the Mind Flayer, which makes Billy act in stark contrast to his usual self. He's sensitive to light, his skin literally burns at being in the sun. This causes Billy to become an introvert, and someone who wants to avoid being seen. Definitely not the Billy that we've come to know up to this point. According to the Mayo Clinic, different variations of bipolar disorder involve what are called manic episodes. At times, the person can be abnormally upbeat, jumpy or wired, having increased activity, an exaggerated sense of well-being, and heightened self-confidence. But on the other side, there are major depressive episodes that include marked loss of interest, feeling no pleasure in activities, restlessness or slowed behavior, feelings of worthlessness, and decreased ability to think or concentrate. Many of these traits show themselves in Flayed Billy. When he returns to work, he's sluggish and doesn't seem to like anyone noticing him. He even hides away in a back room to avoid the public. This is even more evident when Karen follows Billy into the back room and attempts to apologize for standing him up. Billy can't even bring himself to look at her and feels compelled to hurt her, as he has a vision where he slams her head into a wall.
I shouldn't have said that.
He exerts enough self-control to not do that, and instead leaves Karen with a firm warning to stay away from him. To this point, it seems like Billy is going through much of what Will went through when he was occupied by the Mind Flayer a year prior. But this would soon change, as the Mind Flayer realizes a unique opportunity that its new subject presents. Under the influence of the massive entity of the Upside Down, Billy Hargrove is compelled to bring other Hawkins residents to the warehouse for the Mind Flayer to occupy them too. One victim of this would be a fellow lifeguard named Heather Holloway.
Go to hell, Heather!
The next day at the lifeguard chair, Billy literally starts to burn up, so he runs to the showers to stand in the cold water, and Heather runs after him to see if he's okay. But the Mind Flayer lives up to its namesake and distorts his perception of the events.
Take me to him.
Which he does. After knocking her out cold, he lays her down at the steelworks and tells her not to be afraid and that it'll soon all be over.
Don't be afraid. It'll be over soon.
I think she might be afraid. After she joins the Mind Flayer's ranks, the two of them continue to act like normal residents as not to raise suspicion by filling up the bathtub with bags and bags of ice to keep their body temperatures cool. The next targets are Heather's parents. When 11 and Max, who realize something is up with Billy, arrive at the Holloway's house, Billy is no longer acting sluggish and shy. He's upbeat, outgoing, and talkative. The Mind Flayer is active, and Billy is exhibiting traits of a common manic episode. As soon as 11 and Max leave, only partially convinced by Billy's seemingly innocent act, Billy and Heather team up to knock out Mr. and Mrs. Holloway and take them to the Brimborn Steelworks and give them the same warning.
But it'll all be over soon.
At one point, Will shares his experiences of being possessed by the Mind Flayer with his friends, stating that those who are possessed are kind of themselves until the Mind Flayer becomes active, a pattern that seems to support my theory that the creature's grip on Billy is an allegory for a manic or depressive episode of bipolar disorder. I also find it interesting that the kids make a plan to draw the Mind Flayer out of Billy by locking him in a sauna, as the Mind Flayer hates heat, literally bipolar. Their plan almost even works. As Billy is burning up in the sauna, he, for the first time, shares vulnerability with his stepsister Max, screaming repeatedly, "It's not my fault, and he made me do it." Again, according to the Mayo Clinic and other sites, it's a common trait for someone experiencing mania to engage in reckless and even compulsive behavior they later regret. When Max asks who made you do it, Billy describes the Mind Flayer as a giant shadow, something that he can't articulate and that is beyond his control. As Billy and Max share this moment and Max explains to Billy that they're trying to help him, the Mind Flayer interrupts by becoming active once again, and Billy smashes the glass door of the sauna and lashes out at the kids. 11, with her psychokinetic powers, is just barely able to save them, but the battle seems to use up most of her power. Billy meets up with Heather shortly after this.
The girl, was it her?
Yeah, it was her. She knows now. She knows about me. She could have killed me.
Wait a minute, aren't they both under the control of the Mind Flayer right here? Like the Mind Flayer is just having this conversation with itself? I guess maybe how this works is everything they know is sent to the Mind Flayer, but the Mind Flayer doesn't necessarily send information back to them. It may be for a good reason, seeing as how 11 is capable of going into their heads, which she does shortly after. She sees Billy's most intimate memories, how happy he was with his mother on the beach, and how disturbing his father was. This goes on until the Mind Flayer becomes active again, trapping 11 in Billy's head and taunting her that it's coming for her.
And now it's time to end it. And we're going to end you.
11 is able to fight back and escape, but the Mind Flayer now has enough strength to leave Brimborn Steelworks warehouse and go after her itself. So it sends Billy to track her and try to find her. But he finds himself just one step behind wherever she goes. Billy finally gets to her only after the Mind Flayer finds 11 on its own, and he shows up as the kids are trying to escape from the Starcourt Mall. In an attempt to intimidate them, he revs his engine. This may seem like the old Billy, but it isn't. Billy is now completely overtaken by the Mind Flayer and floors it at Nancy, who fires a gun directly at him, but apparently misses him. But Billy's old nemesis, Steve Harrington, saves the day. Billy is badly hurt, but still manages to catch Mike and Max trying to escape with 11. He's completely lost control at this point, throwing his own stepsister and Mike against a wall and hitting 11's head so hard that he knocks her out. He takes 11 up to the food court to present her to the Mind Flayer, just as he had with Heather, her family, and likely several others. But 11 is able to connect with him on a human level by bringing up the memories that he shared with her.
7 feet. You told her. The wave was 7 feet. And you were...
In California. It seems that 11 has managed to break through the barrier in Billy's mind and speaks to the real Billy. After this moment of human connection, Billy leaves Elle alone and stands up to confront the Mind Flayer. Using his bare hands, he's actually able to hold the monster off to protect Max and her friends, but he's only able to withstand it for so long. The other appendages of this terrifying creature jut out and latch onto him, rendering him immobile, before finally one of its arms shoots through his chest and finishes him. Given the highs and lows Billy was put through by this creature, his fates could be an allegory for a losing battle with mental illness. His last words are to his sister Max.
Sorry.
This moment of overcoming an evil supernatural entity that's possessing him and letting love for family override everything briefly, leading to a self-sacrifice, sounds very similar to Jack Torrance in The Shining. The face in front of him changed. It was hard to say how. There was no melting or merging of the features. The body trembled slightly, but then the bloody hands opened like broken claws. The mallet fell from them and thumped on the rug. That was all. But suddenly, his daddy was there, looking at him in mortal agony, and sorry so great that Danny's heart flamed within his chest. The mouth drew down in a quivery bow. "Doc," Jack Torrance said, "run away quick, and remember how much I love you." That's not just a coincidence. The Duffer Brothers instructed actor Dacre Montgomery to specifically draw from Jack Torrance.
I was given a lot of Jack Nicholson. Yeah, a lot of like The Shining. Because my character, I think, in many ways it's kind of that unpredictable sort of nature that I think Jack Nicholson sort of has.
I find it fitting that Billy, who seems to be a melting pot of many of Stephen King's greatest human villains, ends his story in such a similar way to perhaps the most iconic human villain that King has ever created. Despite being an awful person for most of the story, I think a lot of viewers find his death to be a tragic one, given how young he was and of course, his late-stage redemption arc. And this isn't canon, but the next day, Mrs. Wheeler cried for 14 hours, lamenting and having missed her chance. If you want to see the histories of more Stranger Things characters, click that playlist on the left. I've got at least one more episode on the way, so remember to subscribe to CZsWorld for new horrors every week, ring the death bell for all notifications, and I'll see you in the next one. Assuming we both survive.